Dozens of people tuning in.
Hey.
Dozens.
Across the
Hundreds.
world.
That's right. That's right, across the world. Tim and I have known each other for quite some time. You've been here in Sarasota for how long?
Almost 18 years. It'll be 18 years next month.
And you're originally from California, correct?
I am.
And grew up. And your family, brothers, sisters. What was the family dynamic growing up?
Younger sister, and just a mess of steps all over the place. And you know, Mom was married a few times, and yeah, she was married 3 times to an engineer, a meat cutter, and a construction worker. Yeah, she should have kept going. She was only a policeman and an Indian away from the village people. It was,
And your dad was in the service also?
No. He's civilian still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Still to this day. And I say in the service also. Tim was in the service. Yes.
Marines. Thank you.
Which I'm going to kind of jump around with you a little bit, but the Obama voice that you do is morphed from the drill sergeant voice that you used to do, because you do something.
I actually squeezed my trachea.
And it actually was my drill instructor. In boot camp, I did the voice and got caught doing it, which was really fun. And to punish me, they put me up in the one-arm push-up position and made me do my own count.
So I had to go down, up, that's 1, fool, do it again.
And which was fun.
Oh. So your drill sergeant sounded like the President of the United States.
Well, before that, it was actually, I did that as my drill instructor as a joke in boot camp, but for the first 10, 15 years of my act, I did it as Don Cornelius from the Soul Train.
Oh.
Which I used to do 4 impressions. It was Don Cornelius, Casey Kasem, Rain Man, and Schwarzenegger.
Right.
But
when it goes real deep, oh yeah, gonna be a very bad ride on the train today. Gonna be Soul Train, baby.
So
I have never thought about the fact that Barack Obama and President Obama and Don Cornelius sound like they could be father and son.
You never see them at parties together.
No.
You know, it's well. And that was the interesting thing and my friend Andy Campbell from the Daily Buzz.
Yes.
We were on the set one day goofing off, and he said, you know, man, I bet if you worked with that, you could get it close to Obama. So we started playing with it, and it got closer and closer, and it's been a lot of fun.
Now, I don't know whether you've done it. You mentioned to me a while back that one of the guys like Hannity or somebody that had their one of the kind of conservative talk shows were interested in you doing Obama on, was it?
Yeah, I've come close to Hannity. I almost did his 50th birthday party and then something up there, and then that close to Glenn Beck a couple times too. And I just do some random shows around the country. My friend Michael Hart is in 12 markets, and then one in Canada and one in...
Have you ever called into a radio station as Obama and not told them you were a comic? I mean, just call in and you're just Obama?
Oh, actually, no. It was the last election. I called around to Democratic headquarters and encouraged them and told them they were doing a great job. That was a blast.
I want to thank you at this time for your dedication to the cause and making sure that the Congress doesn't change hands.
And, you know, you got these people just answering phone banks going, oh my gosh, it's him.
It would have been better if you'd have called the Republican headquarters and told them what a good job they were doing.
Oh, they would have just spewed hate.
So, you're, did you go to college?
A bit.
Okay.
I went, in high school I went a bit, and then I went a bit more when I got out, and then I just didn't think it was for me, and that's when I said, you know, I need a very swift kick in the ass at this point. I've always thought about the military, and I thought, I want a really hard kick in the ass, which is why I chose the Marines over the other 4 services. And the funny story with that is my mom was adamant. We don't join the military, and if we do, it isn't the Marines. And I said, what do we join, Mom? She said no lie. She goes, AA. We don't join the freaking Marines. Which was...
Well, I've never thought of the Marine Corps as a rehab program.
Oh,
it's a hell of a rehab program.
Hell of a rehab program.
And so when you say that, when you say you felt like you needed a kick in the ass, just life was a little
I just wasn't a disciplined human being. I just wasn't.
How old were you?
My mom actually had to sign the papers for me. I was 17.
Who the hell is disciplined at 17?
Well, you know.
Young men
These
right
guys
here.
look pretty hardcore.
No, it's good.
They look pretty dialed in. But no, I was kind of all over the map. I was kind of Ferris Bueller. I was kind of, I cut school a lot, and it was to go to the racetrack and play the horses. And, there were days, and the teachers knew I was going. So, like, my algebra teacher, who I had the same teacher for the same class for almost 3 years before he finally passed me, he said, he would walk over, and in the middle of my book, as it's open, would be the racing form for the day. And Mr. Wentz would go, "Are you going?" I go, "Yeah, man." He said, "All right, there's a horse in the second I've been watching for a while." And there was this guy that was the custodian of the school that looked like Benny Hill that always had an unlit cigar in his mouth. He would drive those little Cushman carts around, and if he saw us cut in class, he'd go, "You going to the track, kid?" And he would slip us 20 and go, "If I win, don't think you can keep it." But everybody kind of knew that that's kind of what we were doing.
Well, when you think about it, it's math and biology all wrapped together.
It really
and
was.
a little bit of chemistry.
Yeah.
On the way there. So when you came out of the Marine Corps, and you did not at that time there were no war. That was before Iraq, correct?
I saw a lot of time in the desert, but it was Palm Springs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was just before. Actually, I was in the reserves at that point. I kind of scheduled myself out, and my unit shipped off to guard the base for the guys who had left from the Philippines to go to Iraq. And there was the incursion that threw the old regime out, the Marcoses, and the Corazon Aquino regime came in, and they got fired on more than the unit that went to Iraq. So I just missed that too. So I'm
lucky.
Yeah, spent a lot of peacetime.
So then, when you got out of the service, did you have jobs before you got into comedy, or did you?
Oh, I did a lot of random crazy stuff. I sold cars for a couple of years. And then after that, I was delivering water, those big bottles of water. And out in LA, they have this company called Arrowhead, and it was the coolest gig ever. You work like 4 to 6 hours a day. You make an ungodly amount of money in shorts and a T-shirt, and you deliver this water. And then for some reason, I'm driving around with one of my managers who goes out and inspects your route, and he was 37. He started with the company when he was 17, working on the loading dock. He'd been there 20 years. And he's always telling me what he was going to do for the weekend. We're going to ride the motorcycles. Oh, that's cool. Didn't you ride the motorcycles last week? Yeah. Well, what do you do when you don't ride the motorcycles? Well, if it rains, we stay home and clean the motorcycles. And he, no lie, had a boat, jet skis, motorcycles, house, 2.2 kids. I think I don't know where the other kid came from. He was as status quo as it came. He'd been with the same company for 20 years, and it scared the shit out of me. And I'm driving him with him that day, and he said, "Well, what would you do if you weren't doing this?" I said, "I've always wanted to be a comedian. It's been in my yearbook since I was in 6th grade." And that was the time when I said, "I'm going to try this today, because the last thing I want to do is doing the same shit 20 years later." And it scared me to death. So that's when I jumped in with both feet, and I actually scheduled an open mic night for right after that.
Excellent. I got into comedy because I didn't want to have to wear a uniform. Of any kind. That's right. It was not good.
You were in the theater, though. You were more.
Yes. I got an acting degree, and then comedy paid better. That's the truth. Comedy paid way better than acting did. And
didn't it used to pay better than before I got into it?
Yes.
Which is.
Yes. I got paid better than you get paid.
So I followed all the best career paths. I've gotten into a career that has paid less over 30 years than it did before.
Yeah, it went
and
down.
I moved away from LA to Sarasota. I am really
That's right.
beating down the door to success.
That's right. You've made some unusual career choices. Yes. And now you started out in Los Angeles in comedy?
I did.
And how old were you then?
I was 21, right around in there. 21 when I really dove in, and actually once I quit the car and the delivery business, was actually the first job I got, because you don't get a lot of other gigs. I had an old girlfriend that said, "Well, you can be my stock boy at Victoria's Secret," and then, which was awesome.
Yeah.
all I had to do was keep the hangnails down and put clothes on hangers and change light bulbs, and that was my gig while I was starting out in comedy.
Excellent. And then you got into comedy, you were married when by the time you were a full-time comic. You were married then?
I was married. I'd been doing comedy 4 years when I got married, and yeah.
Married and 2 kids.
1 kid at the time.
1 kid at the time.
They come in ones.
A little bit later. And then they come in ones, and then you had the second. And then you moved here.
No, I moved here. He was 3 months when we moved here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's 18, almost 19 now.
And now, because you talk about it in your show, the first marriage didn't work out. Do you think? Because I'm always curious. Because I think it's so tough to be married, and especially when you first get into comedy, because you got to take every gig you can get. And you got to be on the road a lot. Do you think that, looking in hindsight, that the career itself and the demands of the career is what ended the first marriage, or would it have blown out anyway?
It would have, yeah. It would have blown out either way. But it also makes me look at this point that I'm at in my career. You and I talk about this a lot. You've been a really good mentor.
Get the hell out,
women
lady.
are leaving me already. It's
get the hell.
I don't want
out.
to be near a touring comic, but at this point, taking the career to another level with a wife that I really, really like. You know,
that's good to have one you really, really like.
Really, really like. That
opposed to the other kind.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't appeal to me. It just doesn't. I like touring. I love doing this more than I've ever loved it. After 22 years, it's still more fun every single time. But those next few levels are even more demanding than the first few levels. And I'm just not sure.
Right.
You know, and she's got great stuff going on, and I'd say, how can I foster your thing? So
she's an entertainer also.
She's an entertainer also, so I don't have to travel as much as I used to. You know, 3, 4, 5 weeks a month.
And you know, something that we've talked about is, and I think that entertainers, especially anybody that travels a lot, but really has to make this choice when you get married. And we've talked about it. Is that what comes first, the relationship or the career? Because it can't flip-flop, you know, we've seen that happen. Careers first when careers happening, because I'm the entertainer and I'm all that shit and I'm important and everybody loves me. But then when the career ain't going so good, you fall back into the family, and then the family starts to feel cheated, and so you really need to make that decision. And you know, I made the decision that family first, and that's the reason that my career sucks.
I wouldn't say that by any great stretch. But
now,
but it's interesting. My favorite year ever, I front-loaded all of my work and busted my ass from January to August so that I could coach Pee Wee football for 3 months.
Oh, right.
And my wife would come in and go, oh, "You're just gonna put your feet up and call it a year?" No, I'm gonna coach Pee Wee football. And that was like the most intense, awesome year. That was the year I got to go to Afghanistan and do the perform for the troops and do all the things that I wanted to do for 8 months. And then the thing that I really wanted to do was put my family first from August to November and do that. And it was just the ultimate blend. And I just, since then, haven't really found that. Still kind of reaching for that blend.
Cool. And then that was the last thing I want to ask you, and we'll open it up to the audience if anybody has any questions. You've been over and you've entertained the troops more than once.
Yeah.
And you yourself are a Marine, because my understanding is once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine.
Yeah.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many people by applause in this audience tonight are former servicemen? Yeah, let's see.
You're not, man? With that haircut, you need to kick somebody's ass. Seriously?
Right. And of course, so you would, in a moment's notice, would kill half of us. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
No hands down. But when you went over to entertain the guys, you went in, and if I understand it correctly, you didn't go in like the Bob Hope show that we used to see, where it's like, it's like 1,000 guys and girls with you from it. You went in to like deep in, to where it was just like maybe a platoon or something.
We had one show with 2,000. In Bagram with the big American flag behind you on the big stage that Charlie Daniels, Toby Keith plays. And then everything, we did things as little as like the Chow Hall in Ghazni, where you get on a helicopter and you take 2 different helicopters to that base One base, they dropped us off in the middle of nowhere on the wrong place. The landing strip was 147 degrees, and we wandered like to find a base. The guy that was our bodyguard was this big, crazy Baby Huey Special Forces guy that goes, "I see an American flag, saddle up, fellas." I go, "What?" He goes, "We're gonna march about 2 miles." So it was 2 mics. They used to be, 2 meters, 2 kilometers away, and go over there 2 clicks. We're gonna get over there, and these Marines are at the gate going, "What the fuck are you guys?" I go, "We're the comedians." "We weren't expecting a comedy show. Get in the gate." Just random Americans. One of them had long hair and a ponytail. When I got there, it was funny. The base commander in Kyrgyzstan, which was our landing point, lined up spa appointments at their day spa. And I was wearing my dog tags, and the girl was from Kyrgyzstan, who's normally a doctor but makes more money doing haircuts and massages for the troops. And she goes, "Ah, I see your tags, you're a Marine." Just shaves my head. So I got to do 3 weeks of shows with a high and tight with the full-blown Marine haircut.
And now, did you did you have any like crazy? I mean, because a lot of people think the entertainers go over there and you're just not in anything close to where you could be hurt.
We almost got shot down in the helicopter one time, which was like, you got 3 helicopters. When we took off the very first day, and every day you go helicopter to helicopter, base to base. When we took off the first day, we see these Black Hawk fighter attack helicopters and Apaches and all these things in these formations following us like a hornet's nest, just making sure we're cool. Well, on like day 9, these troop helicopters that we're in were landing like real heavy butt down, and then the front lays down. It lays butt down, and before the top could go down, it takes off again. And the rear door gunner is the crew chief, had a ponytail and this big black Darth Vader helmet, and the whole ride she's hooked to a latch to this rope, and she's hanging her feet out, dangling at like 150 miles an hour and 5,000 feet off the ground, and she's got this 50 caliber machine gun, and she's just petting it. Just like, "It's a kitty, this is my gun." When we took off again, she threw a leg over and chambered around. And we're going, "Holy shit." So we're flying around doing all these crazy formations they call orbiting. We called it vomiting. And we finally land. And all 5 of us run. And the guy's like, "Dude, you're a Marine, save us." I'm unarmed and unaware. I'm a comedian now, man. "You got the haircut, kill somebody." We all one dude's practically crying. We run around the corner of this big berm where they refuel, and the guy's like, "Jesus, what happened?" He goes, one guy's tossing his cookies. We run back around the corner. We learn later the girl's name was Rachel. She kicks up her headset, goes, "Are you guys okay?" And you're never going to feel like a bigger wussy. The greatest experience, though, was this unexpected show for 400 Marines that had just come out. They were going cave to cave. We call them glorified Avon ladies, because they're going around knocking on cave doors looking for Taliban holdouts. And they weren't going to get a show. And we found a way to do a show, and we go down to we're in an old airplane hangar living on cots. And Derek Richards, who comes through here with the Irish Comedy Tour, said, "Hey, can I ask that gunnery sergeant for something to stand on so we can do our show?" And I said, "I dare you." And you know how tactful he is. "Hey, Gunny, you get us something to stand on over here." And the Gunny starts barking, and they backed a loader off the flight line. And you got to climb up this ladder to get on it, to talk to it and do your show. And each guy that's going up, the next guy that's coming down, leans over to the other guys and goes, "Man, it's magic up there. It's the greatest show you're ever going to do." And as I'm going up the ladder, they're doing my intro, and they said, "Not only is he a Marine, you've seen him on this, you've heard him on that. Or not only you heard him on this and seen him on that, but he's a Marine." All 400 of them at once, like only Marines can. And I stood on the edge for a second, and I barked, and they barked back. Mike knows. It's like, you see Marines, it's like going to a pet store. But when they barked, I was chills from head to toe. And it was 22 minutes of the greatest time I'd ever had up to that point, and it's one of the greatest times ever. And at one point, I said, folks, I got to go. That's it. Thank you very much. I stood back, popped a nice tight salute. All 400 of them came up again. And I was just welled from head to toe when I looked at the guys, and they're crying. And it was one of those times you get off and you go, you know what? That was worth every bit of every time coming over here. That was the coolest experience ever.
That's great. That's great. You know, because when you go over and when you talk to people that do, and you realize that a lot of the comics that go over being entertainers are usually more left-wing, liberal, but and they might not agree with the war at all. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're over there doing the job, and they have to, and they do it for us, and it's great that you guys go over.
Have you had the chance to go over there and?
No.
And probably Pam, if she's smart, won't let you. Like my wife that loves me now won't let me go back to a war zone. The other one went, oh, go back again. The troops love you. But Rich Davis, who runs a group called Comics on Duty, is who I went over with. And you talk about that, whether they're right, left, or center. He said there's a line around the block of comics that want to go over and do shows and entertain for everybody, which is awesome.
Most do. Any questions? Any questions out there at all for Tim? Anything on your mind,
sir?
How long ago did he have the television show in Tampa?
2006 to 2008, we had that show, and I say we. That's my wife now. And that's a really cool story. It's kind of a tawdry behind-the-scenesy type thing, and then realized that I couldn't live without her, and we got married a year later.
He was he goes on, he gets the job, and he shows up, and here's the host that he's going to work with, and she's a babe. You know what I mean?
And we'd both recently been tossed out of our respective marriages, and the executive.
The cooking segment of the show was cooking.
And the executive producer said, I need you guys to be really well versed and know each other intimately.
All right.
Hey, baby.
That was good. Anything else? Yes.
Micron.
Well, Tim, thanks for your service.
Hey, you too, my man. Thank you very much. Hoorah.
How's a guy break into comedy? And we saw some open micers tonight. And how do you break into this whole crazy genre of comedy? And how do you?
You mean, and I'm gonna, you're speaking more of how do you become a professional, like make your living at it.
Unlike Les, how do you become a professional?
Exactly. How do you become? I mean, how does that?
Well, and it is a really funny story. Actually, someone was here last night. Hosting is one of the first things you do after open micing. That's like one of your official jobs, and it's like in most places except Canada, the lowest part of the totem pole. So to have somebody walk up to a guy who's been in the business like forever, that's worked with the biggest stars and on the biggest stages, like Les, and go, "You the host?" I just had to laugh. Go, "Yeah, he's the host." Again, this is all I've ever wanted to do. 6 years old, 10 years old, 18 years old. So I just started doing the open mics, and then some idiot came up and said, "I've got a room. I'll pay you $10 for 10 minutes." And I went, I'm a professional now. And I quit my job. And then you do as many open mics as you can until somebody offers you $25 and then $50. And then you link all those together and you travel around and just work your way up. The most important thing is getting up as often as you can and writing, and stage time and just working it. And just meeting the people, bonding with the people, and working your act, figuring out who the hell you are, and telling stories.
And you know, we have this. We do the training here, and we have a comedy boot camp. It's like a weekend, and it's just an immersion program. And I've had people, and we've been doing it for 30 years. And here's the story. Is a guy asked me one time. He goes, "Can you make me a professional comedian?" And I'm like, No, I can't make you a professional anything. Nobody can make anybody a professional anything. The only person that can make you a professional is you. And getting to that level is the same with anything else. And Tim, it's perseverance, it's dedication, it's passion, it's hard work. And you're not going to make any money for a long time.
I will say this, your boot camp cuts corners for people by a year to 2 to 5 years off of just banging your head against the wall until you figure it out. I mean, having somebody teach you structure, but yeah, it's just the perseverance. Like in LA, when I first started out, I used to drive an hour to 3 hours to do a free set at the Laugh Factory in LA, which is one of the top clubs in the country. I used to sign up at 11 in the morning, or I used to stand in line at 11 in the morning to sign up on the list at 7 p.m. to go up between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m.
Right.
for 5 free minutes.
Right, right. I got my first, when I first started working professionally, I got my first car. And in 4 months, I had put 25,000 miles on it. Yeah, and had no money. I'd made money, but I didn't have any money. Any other questions? Yes.
I got one.
Okay. Well, we got two. All right, what's yours?
Does your son go to Bayshore High?
Does your son go to Bayshore High?
No, actually, I've got the oldest is out of high school already, and I just need to write new material. And and the second oldest has finished his last year in up in Virginia.
He could have a son at Bayshore, but
I could.
Just don't go there.
Why does he owe lunch money? Because that's my kids right there.
What's your question?
Tim, I've been a fan of yours since you were at Gecko's hosting comedy.
Wow, thank you.
I've been watching you all around. Who's your biggest comedy mentor besides Les?
Besides Les? Well, one of the other local comedians that's had, he's not local, he's a national comedian that lives here locally, Carmen Surasillo. I met him in 1990 when we were in LA, working our way up through the business, and he was like my big brother and has fostered pretty much every level of my career, and you know, I had his voice down long before I had Les's voice memorized, and he's kind of shown me a lot of the ropes. And then in the last few years, I've had guys have big influences on me. Christopher Titus had a huge influence. Eddie Izzard doesn't know he's a huge influence. And then there's a couple other people, but yeah, there's guys that I go to like Les that, you know, have the experience and know so many nuances of the business above. Bobby Jewell up in Tampa's he's been very good to me over the years. But
He owns a comedy club.
He owns a comedy club. But I think other comics, it's one of the hard things is when you start headlining. You remember when you got to headline, you don't get to work with guys that can mentor you anymore, and then you find guys that their career explodes, like a Larry the Cable Guy or a Billy Gardell who's on Mike and Molly. And, you know, as busy as they are, they're lucky if they send you back a text and just say, get her done. And then you go, oh, cool, hey, you know, Larry's still alive. How are the kids? And 6 months later, they're good. So, yeah, it's kind of hard. But, yeah, Carmen was a huge influence on me. And then Titus affected my act. And a couple other guys that have been really cool.
Same kind of question. Who makes you laugh? And is it really difficult after all this time? Do you get kind of jaded to humor? You know, do you like to hear a joke and go, no, that was very good? Or who makes you laugh?
I still appreciate the craft. I still appreciate, and there's guys, I'll drive across the state to do a gig and I'll listen to the radio, the comedy radio. Eddie Izzard destroys me. He's so intelligent. But guys like Greg Warren, but just bizarre people. Brian Regan still makes me laugh. Jim Gaffigan of the bigger names that people know. Greg Warren. There's another guy, PJJP. I'm trying to think of his name, that just destroys me. There's guys, local guys, Philadelphia, Derek Richards. There's guys that their character. It's not so much the way they craft the jokes because they're great, but the person that delivers the joke. I'm just addicted to. Like Les, I never know when you work a crowd. And every once in a while, when I hear your material, I know the character, and I hear the material with the character, and it just kills me. It just kills me because, like last night, I was going, "Oh, that's awesome! I've never heard that before." There's certain guys
I hadn't either.
Yeah, which is great.
Which happens quite often.
Yeah, I still like a really well-crafted, really intelligent person, and then the other thing I like is somebody that's just such a character that they could say anything. They say you could read the phone book and it'd be funny.
One thing that's interesting too is that Tim mentioned several comedians that most of y'all don't know. They're not household names, and we say that all the time. A lot of the funniest, when people ask, say, who's the people that make you laugh? I go, you won't know them. You won't know them. I mean, I can name some stars that definitely I enjoy, but some of the funniest people we know, you don't know. And they're the guys that have been out there for 15, 20, 25 years doing it, and they're great. They just never got a television show. I mean, that's the difference. You either get a TV show or you don't get a TV show.
Well, and-
if you get a TV show, you're famous. If you don't, you're a tradesman.
And then you got guys that are TV and movie stars that either weren't funny when they got famous or they've forgotten how to be funny, and then we pack a club and go, I can't wait to see the guy from The Thing, and he sucks. And the opener's awesome because he's plying the craft 27 days a month, and you come out and you go, you should have been the headliner. And you know that guy is making what you make a year that night, and you go, you prick, share the love. Share the love. I carried the show.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it works. Anything else?
Those are good questions.
That was a good question. I think we've got a bucket back there to draw stuff out of, and I think somebody said that, and we'll do that. And I'll ask Tim one last question. I ask everybody to wrap it up. Is there a great bit that you haven't written? And that is there something that's been running around in your head that has to do, that's maybe a personal story or something globally that either you're very angry about, disturbed about, or super excited about, that you would love to, you go, oh man, I would really like to write about that, but I just haven't yet?
Well, I learned over the years as I tried to do angry material that I don't sell angry well. I've been angry, and even Michelle now, my lovely wife, says, that's just angry. I go, yeah, I know, that's the emotion that I wrote for that bit. No, I don't like angry. You know, I'm actually finishing up a book I've been working on for a long time, and Carmen was the one that, 10 years ago, comedy's a struggle. You're out on the road, you're doing clubs, you're just barely scraping it together. And he leaned over and he goes, Timmy, you should write about something you love, like working out or something. And I started doing workout material and fitness shows and speaking at events, and I do a lot of corporate shows anyway, and I started hosting big bodybuilding shows, but I realized that's a real small, freaky niche of people that walk around with giant legs on horse steroids. But all of us want to take better care of ourselves, so my book is a fitness comedy book, and I'd like to really have a relatable 45-minute to an hour show that makes people understand better and still laugh their abs off, name of the book, and where people go, that was really awesome, I learned something and I had a really good time doing it, and it took the pressure off for me of worrying about my life, and I'm going to go home and have an egg white or something. I don't know, but
you got a goal. You got a goal on that book, because we talked about that earlier. That when you set a goal, because you're a Marine, you have to achieve the goal, or you have to kill yourself.
Or someone else will have to die.
Someone has to die.
Which gets to my wife. She goes, I just said we wanted to do it. I said, no, we have to do it now.
Someone has to die.
I think it'll be at the editors by the end of June and available probably August, September.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's been a long time in the making.
TimWilkins.com.